Everyone is Carrie Anderson, and anybody that doesn't know Carey, he's one of our officials out here in BC. Longtime CFL official, retired in 2015. Was the CFL supervisor currently out here in BC. And just on an aside for Carey, he's always been involved in education, even through his years in the CFL. He was still helping out with minor football, continued that, and now he helps with us, of course, as our educator for all the higher levels for university and junior football, and helps coordinate a lot of that for us. So anyway, flip it over to Carey here, and we'll get going. Carey's looking after all the safety stuff, safety aspects of the game for infractions. So here we go, Carey. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Nigel. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out to join us on a Saturday. And special thanks to Kyle for helping me with the technical stuff, because Kyle's probably forgot more than what I've learned about doing a lot of things technical wise. So Kyle's going to help me pilot through some of the things. I have two rules about the videos coming up. The first rule is that the videos are there for us to learn from. So please, no negative comments like, hey, buddy, was that you that missed that call? That's not what the videos are for. They're for us to learn. And the second rule is don't ask if the player in the video got suspended. Most of the plays you will see the governing leagues have reviewed the plays and they've taken the appropriate actions or have not taken the appropriate actions or have made rulings on them. So don't ask if the player got suspended, because that's not really our concern here. Our concern is to learn from the video and the stuff coming up. So Kyle, if you want to go ahead and start the PowerPoint, and then we'll throw the videos in, and you can either ask a question vocally, or if you want to use the chat to ask questions, feel free to do so. Either way, we'll try and answer your questions. And like everything else, there are no dumb questions, so feel free to ask. So I'm going to talk about player safety, specifically targeting, defenseless players, and other high hits to the head. And Nigel said I had to get it in between 45 minutes and an hour, so I'm going to be going through some of it pretty quickly to try and get as much as I can in. As per the rule book, targeting means that a player takes aim at an opponent for the purpose of attacking with forcible contact that goes beyond making a legal tackle or a legal block or playing the ball. And some of the indicators of targeting include, but are not limited to, okay, Kyle? Launching. There was one slide, I guess in my technically challenged thing, we missed out of there. I just want to take a step back before we get into the definitions here. What the philosophy used to be was, if you're unsure, leave it alone. It was always easier to explain to a coach why we missed a call rather than try to explain why we made a bad call. Well, that still holds true for the technical part of football. You know, if you have a sweep going left and you've got a hold on the right side, you're going to use your good judgment on whether that affected the play or not, and you're going to rule whether that really was a foul or not. But when it comes to player safety, specifically targeting, because we want to protect the player, if it's one of those plays like, oh, wow, that was close, was it or wasn't it? Now it's a foul. We want to protect the player. So the philosophy has changed with player safety, and especially in the targeting portion of the rule book. If you think it's a foul, call it. So different philosophy change. Okay, the first targeting definition is a launch. And this is probably the best video clip of all of them that demonstrates targeting. This is more than just a launch. And you'll see the player on the left-hand side, right on the sideline. His feet is off the ground. He's launched himself. And Kyle's going to show the video in a few seconds. But he leaves his feet to attack the player. So ignore the commentary. If you hear commentary in the background, the CFL has a different philosophy. They still call it spearing. They have several grades of spearing. But for our purposes of amateur, this is a target. This is a launch. This is defining targeting from a lot of ways, leading with the head, using the helmet, the whole works. Okay, let her rip, Kyle.
One thing with the video, guys, if it is choppy on your end, I did put the links for YouTube in the chat if you did want to open it to get a better view of it. So just keep that in mind if it's choppy for you on your end.
So he launches, he leads with the helmet, he hits the ball carrier. Yeah, this meets the standard of our targeting in very many ways as defined by the rule book. And that's got to be called. So any questions about targeting based as the definition of launching? I think that one's pretty easy. And again, it also applies to leading with the helmet, the other sections of the rule book that the rule book talks about. It meets the standard. Go to the next one. So this one's a crouch, and a crouch is followed by an upward forward thrust to attack with forcible contact at the head or neck area. The feet could be on the ground or they could be off the ground. And the video is somewhat clear. Yeah, maybe the feet are up, but if you watch where the player starts, he starts low, comes up, and makes contact to the receiver that has just received the ball. The receiver's in a vulnerable position, and this meets the criteria. This meets the standard of a target based on the crouching definition in the rule book. Okay, go ahead and let her rip. So again, the white player starts into a bit of a crouch. He comes up, he makes contact with the head area of the receiver and meets the standard for targeting based on the definition in the rule book of a target, crouching style target. Okay, next one. Leading with the helmet, shoulder, forearm, fist, hand, or elbow to attack with forcible contact at the head area. So on this particular play, watch blue number 15. His arms are actually at his side when he makes contact with the ball carrier. He doesn't try to make a form style tackle. And several coaches that have seen this video clip have told me that's not the proper form for making a tackle. He then turns and uses his shoulder to the head of the ball carrier. And by the definition, that meets the standard for targeting. The sideline view may not show it as well as the end zone view, which the field judge has an excellent view on and makes the call. But if you watch from the end zone, you'll watch the arms of blue 15. They're at his side. He makes no attempt to make a form style tackle. Instead, he uses his shoulder to contact the ball carrier in the head area. Any questions on this particular play? Okay, next one, Kyle. After the end zone, we'll let the end zone go through one more time.
Hey, Carrie, I saw there was one question there. The difference between the crouch and the launch, is that the difference whether they leave their feet or not?
Yeah, the launch is shown in the first one. He's clearly left his field. He's launched his body, led with a helmet. Whereas the crouch, he may or may not leave his feet. He gets down in the crouch and he comes in an upward motion and then contacts the ball carrier or the receiver in the head area. a crouch, you may or may not leave your feet. You can still have a crouch without leaving your feet. So hopefully that answers the question on that. Next one, Kyle. Lowering the head before attacking by initiating forcible contact with the crown of the helmet. So again, this number 4 applies in the first couple of videos that we saw, the first 2 videos we saw, the crouch and the launch. Yes, Rob mentions a good comment. With the crouch or launch, there has to be a great deal of force, a forcible hit. And yes, you are correct. And on both of those ones, we've determined that that's a good forcible hit. This one here, if it's a football play and there is contact with the head, it's not a foul. And this play generated a lot of discussion, but you'll see once Kyle lets it go, the defender is making a play on the ball. Yes, there's some force to the receiver's head area, but again, is that a football play? And after a lot of discussion, we decided that it was a football play. The defender's making a play on the ball. It's actually deflected, and we get an interception. So this was a correct ruling by the officials on the field to rule this as not a foul. It was a football play. The contact made by the defender to the head area of the receiver was legal. Everybody okay on this one? Okay, next. Yeah, the incidental contact while making a play is not a foul. Okay, so we're going to talk about players in a defenseless posture. And it is a foul if a player initiates unnecessary contact against a player who's in a defensive posture. Now, for these to be a foul, and you have to have one of each. So first we're going to go through the definition of players in a defenseless posture, and then we'll go through things that can create a foul in this defenseless posture. Sorry. So players in a defenseless posture are a player in the act of or just throwing a pass. So we do have rules in play for the quarterback. We got roughing the passer. We've got hits above the head, hits below the knee. So they're basically defining the quarterback here, a player in the act of or just after throwing a pass. And that would also apply to a running back throwing a pass as well. A receiver attempting to catch a pass or who has completed a catch and has not had time to protect themselves or has not clearly become a runner. If the receiver runner is capable of avoiding or warding off impeding contact of an opponent, there would be no longer a defenseless player. By the way, these definitions are straight out of the rule book. I've copied and pasted to the slideshow straight out of the rule book. A runner already in the grasp of a tackler and whose forward progress has been stopped. A player attempting to field a kick in the air. Next slide. A player on the ground. A kicker punter during a kick or during the return. And I want to talk a little bit briefly about number 6. Just because the punter has kicked the ball and he's admiring his kick doesn't mean he's fair game. And it used to be, oh, he's fair game. He's crossed the line of scrimmage after the kick. Yes, he's dawdling. Let's plant him into the ground. Well, if he's not able to protect himself, he's not open for fair game. Same for a quarterback. At any time after a change of possession, if a quarterback throws an interception or there's a fumble, he's got his hands on his hips going, oh crap, I made a bad throw, does not give the defense a free license to take a shot at him. A player who receives a blindside block, and actually, Kyle, I've got this in the wrong spot. We'll come back to this video in a minute. I want to finish going through the definition. So we'll go 8, 9, go to the next slide, and then we'll come back to this video. A player who receives a blindside block when the blocker is moving towards or parallel to their own goal line and approaches the opponent from behind or from the side. And the last definition, a player who is protected from illegal crackback. Go to the next slide, then we'll come back to this still picture again. So the prohibited contact against the player who's in a defensive posture is forcibly hitting the defenseless player's head or neck area with the helmet, face mask, forearm, or shoulder. So going back to that play we saw earlier where the player, blue 15, had his arms at his side and used the shoulder and got the ball carrier, there's your definition of shoulder. Lowering the head or making forcible contact with the top crown or forehead of the helmet against any part of the defenseless bodies. So again, defenseless player, you could have a receiver going up in a vulnerable position and the tackler hits him in the rib cage while the arms are extended and the player's in the air. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to hit him in the head. You could still spear the guy, and this would be your spearing definition. And or illegally launching into a defenseless player, as in video number 1. So go back to the previous video clip. Thanks, Kyle. So on this particular play, I was actually the supervisor at this game. And look at the official at the bottom right-hand corner. And look at the traffic he's looking through. And when Kyle eventually widens the video, you're going to see he makes a penalty call. At the time, he ruled this as a blindside block. But he reported to us, reported to me, the supervisor, that it smelled bad. He couldn't see the head contact. He felt that there could have been a targeting on it. And could we please review it on film? So after reviewing on film, we thought we probably had a targeting here. But because he wasn't certain, he called it as a blindside block and asked us to have a look at it. So again, going back to the erring on the player safety, we want to make those kind of calls. We want to get the you know, if you think it's target, if it smells like a target, we want to call it that. Again, player safety, number 1. And again, I think this was handled quite well. He called a foul, we reviewed it, and the league reviewed it, and everything ended up turning out okay. Any questions on this one? Okay, next slide, Kyle. And next one. Okay, head tackling, clotheslining. It shall be illegal to tackle around the head in the open field or straight arm tackle to the head, commonly referred to as clotheslining. Now, in the lower levels, you're going to hear the coaches scream all the time, "It's a head tackle, it's a head tackle." Again, I'm going to go back to the coach's definition of a form tackle. If it's a form tackle where the player is being wrapped up, and sometimes that penalty, or sometimes the arms will slide up to the head area, if there's no initial force, if he's not using the head area as a primary area or an initial area, then it's really not a foul. If it slides up, makes a tackle, we've got nothing. If it slides up and he throws him by the head down, then you've got a UR. Clotheslining, quite often when you get discussions, you get deer in the headlight look from people attending the different sessions on, what are you talking about for clotheslining? And we actually found a video clip that actually shows this. Now, the referee correctly called roughing the passer. We would have been comfortable had he called it UR clotheslining. Either way, he correctly applied a UR penalty to this play, and we were okay with either interpretation. He called it roughing the passer. We're good with that. We would have gone with clotheslining as well. Yep, sure, one more. Okay. So you've seen the six.
Carrie, excuse me.
Yes.
Excuse me. Murray Drinkwalter here. Just a
Hi, Murray.
thought on that last previous play.
Mhm.
That quarterback is not in the act of passing.
Yeah.
So how could you call that roughing the passer?
Mm,
I'm just being a little technical here, bringing it out.
yeah. No. I guess because the tackles have retreated into a passing formation, and yeah, he hasn't had a chance to set his feet. He hasn't had a chance to get into the passing thing. Great question. I guess from a supervisor's point of view, we got the foul on it.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. But I just wanted to bring that up. That's all.
Yeah. I graded the film on this one, and I graded it as a correct because I want to protect the quarterback. And
I would have done the same.
yeah, yeah, and I'm not going to get too technical with the referee on his definition. He tackles are retreating. He hasn't quite set his feet to get into the passing motion. I'm okay with that.
Carey, it's Jim Crowley in the suit. Could I call that as a blow to the head
Can you
versus roughing the passer?
Can you rewind that again, Kyle, again? I'll look at this again. I don't think the defender came and made a blow.
Oh, okay.
He reached and grabbed on this.
Okay.
Let me look at it again closer, but I'm thinking it's more of a reach rather than
Okay.
a blow. But because it's above the head, yeah, it's a reach.
Okay. Okay.
It's contact above the head, and under the roughing the passer rules, any contact above the head is illegal or clotheslining. So I would not call that a blow to the head.
Okay. Okay.
Because then we're getting into the targeting area.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
But good question though. Good question.
Right. So just a further question on that. I realized that like in that play, whether it's called roughing the passer or called UR as a clothesline, does that change the outcome of like of the penalty, like in terms of yardage, like
No.
how much yards is going to be put against them? It's 15 yards regardless.
Yeah, it's 15 yards regardless. Yeah, so it wouldn't change the yardage penalty. Your application points there, PLS up 15, unless he broke the tackle and gained some yardage, then it'd be point ball dead automatic first. But yeah, the application's still the same.
With that play, had that play have gone further and say been tackled around the head on say the receiver who caught the ball, would that then immediately be flagged for targeting and clotheslining instead of, like, I'm just trying to figure out if like I understand in that specific scenario it could go either way, but in an instance with another player, would that be UR for targeting as opposed to roughing the pass?
Hard to get into could'ves and should'ves, but had that, let's just say that particular type of tackle
On any other player,
on a receiver, I would have called, if that was receiver, I would say that's a clothesline on the receiver and a 15-yard UR penalty. Because it's not a blow to the head, I would stick with the UR clotheslining. If the red player swings his arm and makes contact, and it's a forcible contact hit to the head, you could possibly upgrade that to a targeting. But I would like to see a forcible move by the red player as a direct blow to the head.
now whether targeting or UR is that going to affect how much yardage play wise and whether ejection or not
Yes.
to the defensive player?
Yeah. Yes, because if you apply the targeting rule, depending on the level of football, and somebody will jump in there and tell me where the cutting point is, I believe it's U15, but please correct me if I'm wrong. U15 and above, other than the junior and CIS ranks, it's going to be a 25-yard penalty and a disqualification. Junior and CIS will review those plays, I believe. And I believe under U15, it's a 25-yard penalty for the first offense. Somebody jump in case I've got my numbers wrong here. But I believe that's what the rule book currently says. So anything you rule as you are clothesline, head tackle, 15 yards. If it's targeting, it's 25 yards and possible disqualification, depending on the age and the league. Thanks, Murray. Murray just confirmed I've got the right definition, U15.
So now, sorry, now with that, now I know I'm very new, so very young. I rep pretty much strictly U15. Just trying to see that real distinction between targeting versus UR, because the outcome of the play is very different.
Yeah, and then, well, if you go back to page 42 of the rule book, the highlighted area, Article 6, the targeting, which we showed on the PowerPoint, is all laid out. So to call it targeting, you've got to meet, those particular standards as highlighted in the rule book. So if it meets that standard, then you've got targeting. Oh, Kyle's just going back to find it for me. Perfect. So it's defined in the rule book there.
I just don't want to be caught with making the wrong call accidentally.
Yeah, no. And again, when it comes to player safety, the philosophy's changed. So we want to protect the player. We've had a decline in numbers for football registration. We've not gotten very positive press, regarding football. A lot of parents out there would rather their children play other sports than football because of this negative press. They think that football is a dangerous game, and we've got to change that mindset. And I think the Rules Committee has made some good changes over the last few years. And you know what? We've changed our philosophy. When it comes to player safety, we want to err on the side of caution. If you think it's a foul when it comes to player safety, we want you to call it. It's a philosophy change from what it used to be from 7-8 years ago.
All right, thanks for the Carey.
Yeah.
Hey, Carey, it's Nigel here again. Just wondering, one of the things in the big list you had there was the blindside block. And I know we've had a lot of controversy over that one. Maybe if you could expand a little bit on that as we're going along here, because there's blindsides where the player's going and fulfills all the directions of the definition, but is hit straight on front. And people have a hard time looking at that going, well, how is that a blindside? And of course, that one looks really bad to coaches too, because it fulfills all the other directional stuff, but he's still getting hit from the front and sees the hit coming. Where are we with that one as far as, anyway, I'll let you expand on that one. Yeah,
the Rules Committee this year, I think, defined it properly and made it easier to call. A player who receives a blindside block, the blocker is moving towards or parallel towards their own goal or own dead ball line. And if he blocks the defender from behind or from the side, that's a penalty. There are many times where the player looks up last minute and doesn't have time to defend himself. It's a last minute, and before he can raise his arms to protect himself, he gets blown up. And again, the thinking of 10 years ago where that used to be a great block, because it comes down to player safety, we have to make that call. And just because he hits him in the front, if his head is looking, if he's looking elsewhere and can't see the block coming, he's in a defenseless position. And I think the rule changes this year that came in helped clarify that and help define that. My definition that I have here, number 8, I got to confess, was from the last year's book. And if someone has the update this year, I think it's better. I think it's defined better than it was in previous years.
No, thanks,
just
Carey.
have one more.
That's what I was looking for there, because I know there was always that, well, you've been privy to, and we've had all those discussions about it many times. So that's good.
Carrie, one quick question, because I know you want to get going. You made a statement that he didn't get his hands up to defend himself. Should it matter that he gets his hands up? Like, it could only be like a split second. He sees him at the last second. I don't see him mattering if he gets his hands up to defend himself on a blind side.
See,
Like
here's
split second.
I guess maybe I was misleading on that.
Yeah.
I would have added sufficient to protect himself and be able to take the block. And you're right. Thanks for the correction. You may not even have enough time. You may start to raise your hands and then boom, you're blown up. But if I have time to maybe plant my feet and I see you coming, I go, okay, I can protect myself and then absorb it. But use your good judgment. And again, when in doubt, call it a foul, because we want to protect the players. But anything from the side or from behind, you're not going to see it. You're going to get blown up. That's got to be called. And use your good judgments on the ones where, did he see him? The key is, whether the action's enough to take him out of that defensive posture. So make sure it fits that definition. And when in air, call it.
No, it's good. Thanks, Carey. You can continue along with the rest there. Sorry, we just kind of went on a little sidetrack there, but it was a good sidetrack.
No, that was a good sidetrack, because we kind of figured we were going to get into some discussions on some of the points, because there's a lot of technical stuff and definitions, and like Murray talked about, bringing the hands up. What's the definition of being able to sufficiently protect yourself? And you know what? I think we are all going to have the basics on what our standard is, but there's all going to be like, each play is different. Did he really have enough chance to protect himself? Was he just starting to protect himself? And when in doubt, it's a foul. And that's the direction we got to go with player safety. We have to take that route. We got to be able to convince the moms and dads out there that football is safe and it's a great team sport to play, and your kids are going to be protected, playing this great game. So we got to err on the side of safety. Any last questions? I see Jake's hand up.
Yeah, if you don't mind, a philosophical thought here, not a technical thought. We've heard a lot, I've heard it said a lot of times by a lot of people, to err on the side of safety. I think I take a different philosophical approach, and this is very subtle. I rule on the side of safety, and most times it won't be an error.
Good philosophy, Jake.
And I'm serious, I think about that a lot while I'm officiating.
I think that's a great comment.
Mhm.
Carrie, just add again to what you said, a good thing to keep in mind for everybody when you're calling fouls. If you're calling a regular normal foul, and if you think it's a foul, it's not. If you think it's a UR, it is.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Carrie, Jim Fowler here. Could I jump back to the blindside block for a minute?
Sure.
Sure. So the blindside block, as it's defined, just has to be forcible contact with the blocker moving in an unnatural direction, and that's back towards his own goal line or parallel to. So that creates the block, the blindside block. In the defenseless player rule this year, we've added in the blind side, and we've added the criteria from the back or from the side, but that only has to be a block as opposed to a forcible block. So there's a little bit of a subtle distinction there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guy's blown up, you're going to make that call every time. I think I know where you're going, and my understanding from Rules Committee, and again, if the Rules Committee guys are on there, please jump in. Remember the crackback block that used to come in and you were allowed to hit them above the waist, but you couldn't hit them below? My understanding with the rule changes now, even if you crack coming in above the waist, that's a penalty this year. So you're going to have to make that decision. Is it a seal block, or is it a crackback block? Is it a blindside block? You're going to have to decide what's forcible, what's legal, and you're going to have to treat each situation as it's presented to you on the field. So you're going to have to think, hey, does this meet my criteria for a blindside? Does this meet my criteria for a crackback? Does this meet my criteria for defenseless? But I think I think Rules Committee has defined it pretty well. And I think the rule changes made this year are going to help us with those definitions.
And we have a session next week on the rule changes with Kelsey, so that'll probably fill right into this stuff.
Perfect. I'm gonna ask you a second. I gotta see if so it's Jim again from the Sioux. I have a question that I didn't hear on targeting. Is how many of you out there have called the offensive player, such as the running back lowering his head or the wide receiver lowering his head to make initial contact? We don't hear much talked about that, but we do see it once in a while.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
If it's a third down and the guy's plunging into the line, that's a normal football move. And that one is a tough one to call. I think you have more of a chance if you're in the open field and on a one-on-one. And again, I haven't seen it on film, so I haven't been able to find the example that fits that criteria. But what I'm visualizing, and some of the other guys like Murray, please jump in if you've seen it or can add to it, where a defender might be in his form to make that tackle, and the running back or the receiver lowers the head and pile drives through him, I guess. That would sort of be my visual on how it might look. Murray, how do you see that?
I would tend to agree with you. You're basically going to see that, I think, on a one-on-one situation in the open field, or even on a running back that may be just outside the tight end or something. But I think if you're going to have it in the middle of the line between the tight ends, it's going to be hard to see and it's going to be hard to call.
Okay. Thanks, Murray.
That's my take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Anything else? If not, it's 1:45, and I think Jim Mullin is your next speaker. I'm going to head over. I've got the level 1 coming up with Frank White in another hour. Okay. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to attend on a Saturday, and to all the people that put together these sessions. Thanks for inviting me to come on board, and I enjoy talking football, and wish you guys all the success on the remaining weeks.
Great job, Carey. Great job.
Thank you, Carey. Appreciate this, Carey.
Now, Carey, in Nova Scotia, if you're ever in here, you're entitled to a free drink on me, but Nigel says he's picking up your bill. Okay, so
excellent. Nova Scotia, I was there for a conference back in the early 90s and enjoyed Nova Scotia so much. It's one of the areas my wife and I have always talked about. We got to go there and visit. So once COVID goes through that, I might do that. Is Nigel giving you his credit card or what? Just so I know.
Thanks, Carey.
Yes, he is.
We'll talk later about that, Carey.
Okay.
Anyway, actually, we're a little early. I don't know if Jim's online yet. I just wanted to make a couple of quick things just on general stuff. A reminder to everybody that's listening, and get it out to everybody, we do have service pins. And I know a lot of guys have sent applications in for them. The application, I don't know if it's online yet or not. Kyle can maybe answer that. But if not, it all comes to me anyway. I've got all the pins sitting here, and I'm getting an order within the next week to replenish a lot of the different years that we had, because we ran out of some. So I know one of the orders, I think, is going out to Al Gates out there. Once I get them this week, I'll be getting some in the mail to you. So I don't know if he's on there today or not, but just a reminder for that. It's a good kind of recognition for a lot of people that have done service. They started 20 years and go in 5-year increments up to 55 years now that we have for pins. And another new pin we'll have, if we even have it this year, is for the Canadian Bowl. And we'll have to look at maybe giving some pins going back a few years as well, if we can get the names of the crews together, kind of thing, to recognize those. So again, some kind of national recognition for those games as well. Anyway, back over to you, Barry. I don't know if Jim's on yet or not.
Unmute
Nigel.
yourself. Yeah, Jim is here. So Nigel, you're more than willing to introduce Jim and carry on.
All right. Anyway, thanks for coming today, Jim, and taking time to do this for us. Jim's a longtime broadcaster with us. Probably saw his lengthy bio that we had for him. I didn't realize he'd done a lot of that stuff. I knew he was a broadcaster because I always hear him on the air, and TV broadcasts as well. Being in Vancouver here, strong supporter of amateur football. I can't really emphasize that enough. Big supporter, and a big supporter of us as well. He's one of the because as the president for Football Canada, he was instrumental in getting us as the CFOA to be a key participant with Football Canada. So we have a way larger say than we've ever had in the past with Football Canada, and that's very much appreciated. Anyway, Jim, I'll leave it to you. We've got a bit of extra time here, so I'll turn it over to you and let you get going.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nigel. And thanks also goes out to Henry for some of the work we've been able to do with him as now the CFOA is an associate member. I'll get into that in a little bit. And thanks also going out to Kelsey Johnson for heading up the rewrite of the rule book. I know that's a massive project for him and his team. Yeah, I was elected as president of Football Canada back in 2019. I'll give you a little more bio information. I've been on the Football Canada board since 2015. Prior to that, I was involved with Football BC on their board for 3 years. There was actually a year in there where I worked hard to work with the group in BC to transition to a new PSO. 30 years in broadcast, writing, and event management. I managed the 2011 Vanier Cup out here in BC. What a fantastic game that was. I've called about 600 games in the Western Hockey League and university football and basketball in Europe, where I worked for FIBA for 4 years. But I think my most ever watched clip that's out there involves badminton, where two Thai badminton players actually had a fist fight and a kicking match in the middle of a badminton tournament that has been viewed 5 million times. So you have to give the people what they want. I was sports director at the #1 station in Western Canada on radio. Produced docs for the CBC, and I've written for 2 newspaper chains. We have working with my partner who contributes to Crown Gridiron Nation, our weekly show on TSN during the fall, which highlights collegiate football and junior football. We put an award forward, the Cornish Trophy, to recognize the top Canadian in the NCAA. We'll be awarding that for the 4th time coming up this May. And we also did the 2018 World Junior Championship in Mexico on CBC Sports. I produced that. and announce that. And if I can get together with you guys face to face, I can tell you about the adventure of trying to single-handedly produce a game out of Mexico. Football Canada. Where are we at right now? Well, we're pretty good in terms of our shape, considering everything that's gone on through this pandemic that we've all had to share. We've managed to keep our government funding and our staff mainly intact. We're providing support to provincial members who are really the key to delivering our programs. That's coaches certifications, working with officials, our return to play through COVID, where we had a task force formed at the start of this adventure, and we continue to revisit that document. Safety initiatives, we'll get into that a little bit. Mental health supports and dialogue around mental health, because that's become an issue through COVID. And continuing planning around national and international events. Probably the worst part of this job, and I think many of my board members will share this with me, and many of the staff will also, is having to plan for national and international events, and then COVID forcing our hand to cancel them. We've had to cancel 2 Canada Cups now. We've had to cancel 2 World Championships, which Canada was willing to take on after the United States started to go through a process of declining their 2020 candidacy for the World Junior Championship. And unfortunately, COVID brought that to a close. So we are going through a process where we're looking for national championships for 2022 in Vancouver, and pairing that up with an international championship to stage an effective national relaunch of the game, even though we look forward to having football this fall. And I'll be willing to take questions on what we know about that from province to province after I give you this synopsis. One of the most important things from a Football Canada perspective, when I took over as president in 2019, was trying to find a path to give a voice to stakeholders that were not PSOs. And it took about a year and a lot of consultation to create a category of associate membership. And associate membership brings the national organizations together around a table, so they can not only discuss shared files and shared issues, but also engage with the PSOs at an AGM when we can finally get together face to face at an AGM. And also take place in the voting and in our committees. The associate members around the table now are the CFOA, U Sports, the CJFL, and the Canadian Football League. And our very first meeting, I thought, was quite productive. We had the CFL talking with the CJFL about finding a path to getting the Canadian Bowl paired up during Grey Cup week as one of the events during Grey Cup week. We talked about the Vanier Cup pairing up with Grey Cup week, and how, you know, things do time out or don't time out on that level. But also it's important in terms of a voice when we don't necessarily share the same position on issues. Recently, at the start of last week, we went around the table to everyone except the CFL due to some of the stories we've heard in around rules and in and around ratio concerning the professional game. I think everyone in the amateur football community agrees on the potential impact of radical change, if there is radical change. We quite frankly don't know where the CFL is at on changing rules in a dramatic way or changing the ratio, but we needed to get out ahead of this. So we did put a policy statement out to the Canadian Football League to consider the position of amateur football, the role of the Canadian player, the dimensions of the Canadian field, and the 12-man game moving forward. So the Canadian Football League is very aware of the shared position of the stakeholders in amateur football. One of the things that we also started in 2019 and have followed through on is that we've reached out to different groups and companies and partners to assist in delivery of services. There's a group known as ENK that has helped us in terms of concussion monitoring and data collection. They also serve on our safety committee. Performance improvement that leads to safety. Digital combines, which have been especially important during COVID, so players can get their numbers out there and get video collected. And I mentioned it before, but mental health seminars and promotion of potential partners and active partners in the field that are having discussions about mental health within the game. Tackle It is a group in BC here, led by Katie Utley, who's been having monthly discussions on mental health. I just appeared on that actually to discuss both Football Canada matters and personal matters. Because I think mental health is an issue that touches us all. And I think it's an important discussion to have, especially with some of our young athletes who are having challenges through this time. We are looking to work with a broader set of partners moving forward, especially in terms of the performance and safety profiles. One of the initiatives that we finalized in July of last year was our strat plan. So we have a 5-year strat plan moving forward. It does place the athlete at the center of what we do. There are 3 areas that we focused on: football in Canada, within Football Canada, and globally. One of the attitudes that the organization has assumed taking forward is yes, our members are very important to us, but also those stakeholders that are not yet members, we have to reach them because it's important for us to build the game in every form. So when we talk about football within Canada, we're talking about those participants that we haven't reached with membership yet, and they are important to us. When we talk about globally, we want to be a global leader. I brought up the point about organizing World Junior Championships. Well, Football Canada wants to be in the position where we have global events every year on the tackle side. USA Football and IFAF are emphasizing the flag game, and we can get into the flag game in a little bit as well. Because that's the path towards the Olympics. And we do have an opportunity possibly to participate in the Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles. To take up the slack internationally, we believe that Canada is very well placed to provide that leadership that USA Football is slowly backing away from when it comes to the tackle game. So as I mentioned, we're looking forward to and trying to piece together a world challenge or a world championship for 2022. So far, we have commitments from Mexico, Australia, Japan, the United States, We had a discussion with Denmark and Norway last week. They are in the process of putting together a Team Nordic. We had a discussion with France. They are going back to the European group to talk about a U20 team coming from Europe to participate in that. And if we pair that together with the Canada Cup, I think we'll have a fantastic relaunch, and a key component of this, as well as a broadcast component. Broadcast component to get the word out about amateur football at a high performance level. It's important that we have a regular calendar that draws people back to the heart of the game at the grassroots and the end result of grassroots, which is high performance. In our national office, we always have the challenge of not being an Olympic sport. In terms of participation numbers, we're anywhere between 6th to 10th in Canada in terms of registered participants. But in terms of funding from the government, we're in the range of anywhere between 60th to 68th because we're a non-Olympic sport. So I think our staff goes well beyond the call of duty with the hours and dedication and focus that they have. I think a prime example is our latest hiring phase. Aaron Giesler had just recently left to become the executive director in Ontario, which I think is a fantastic move for Ontario, and we can get into that in questions later on. So we wanted to hire someone who was responsible for contact and non-contact. But after revisiting the needs of coaching development and officiating development, we hired an individual out of Regina, Scott Wallishan, who has an officiating background and can address issues that the CFOA has directly with the CFOA. So we have someone now who is committed to coaching and officiating development in our office. And I understand that Scott and Henry have been talking. We are in the process of developing a letter of understanding. I had a discussion with our executive director, Shannon Donovan, on Friday about this. It's still in the process, but we have a great deal of confidence that we can find something that works for both parties moving forward. And we do respect that the CFOA is how should I put it, the last of a dying breed in a way. And what I mean by that is most NSOs manage their group of officials. We don't. We respect the status of the CFOA as their own group and their own association. And instead of taking the route of forcing compliance on people, we would much rather have dialogue and consensus with a group like the CFOA moving forward. There are a number of other pieces that we've been working on, whether it's bid process, whether it's the year of mediation and work that we put into Ontario, which I think Ontario is now in a position to start turning the corner. But we want to be in a position where we're very accessible, where we're visible, and I think there are probably a few people on this call that understand that if you want to talk to leadership at Football Canada right now, it's as easy as sending me an email or picking up the phone. There will be somebody on the other end that will answer it and find an answer for you. So with that, I'm happy to take any and all questions, and I'll tell you, if I don't have the answer, I'll go find it for you in the coming week.
Okay, if guys want to, if you unmute, if you've got a question for Jim, now's kind of our chance. I know there's one question there, Jim, guys were looking for, and I'm curious about it as well. Due to COVID and a lot of these championship games or leagues that we had, are anybody looking at extending eligibility for players because of the lost time that they've had now, given it's been 2 football seasons almost now?
Well, that's one of the challenges of national versus provincial versus regional. And it really comes down to the managing bodies of the provinces or the leagues to make those decisions. The provinces are very important in that they're the ones that deliver services and deliver those things on the ground. So as much as I'd like to give you a single answer that covers all 10 provinces and everything that works in those provinces, it comes down to how the PSOs want to pursue it. I will say that, for instance, with the Canada Cup, you know how you have plan A, B, and C? We were actually around H or I trying to pull off the Canada Cup this year. When it looked like there may have been a path towards it, we talked about overage players for the Atlantic provinces, but it was essentially a non-starter at the national level. I know that that in terms of competition, we've talked about as a substitute for Canada Cup interprovincial games. So that would feature BC versus Alberta, Saskatchewan versus Manitoba, Ontario versus Quebec, and a series between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. At this stage in this date right now, probably New Brunswick and Nova Scotia are the only ones with something of a clear path to maybe achieve this by the end of July. Our major concern on this is, and the province's concerns, it isn't necessarily hitting that end of July date. It's having the ability to properly evaluate players and having that opening on the calendar to do so. So, just like you guys in terms of trying to adjust things around COVID, this has really been like trying to nail Jello to the wall. Just when you think that there's an opening on the calendar, and we've tried to do a lot of pre-planning months and months in advance on this, trying to guess what the path is, and having 5 different outcomes at the end of each of these paths. It's really been impossible to predict. So if you're looking for guidance right now about outcomes, I'd reach out to the PSO in your province to try to get some sort of indication. I will say, for instance, for Ontario, I think it's impossible for them to project anything right now. I think it might be a little clearer in a place like BC, Alberta, maybe Saskatchewan.
No, perfect, Jim. Maybe if you can, I know a lot of guys don't know, I mean, I do, and so does Henry, maybe some of the committees that you've got us involved in now through the CFOA. A lot of guys aren't aware of how much sort of stuff we're involved in, let's put it that way.
Yeah, the rules committee and the safety committee are 2 key things. I think everyone around the table here is well aware of the rules committee. One of the reasons why I was insistent upon associate membership for the CFOA is that I don't believe that you can have a complete discussion about player safety and the administration of player safety without the officials being fully immersed in that planning discussion around safety committee. And Casey's presentation was a clear illustration of that. So I think that those 2 key pieces are there. I know that there are other areas that the officials are involved in on committee, be it the contact committee is another one, which is a main planning committee. And I will say, the one clarion voice on our board of directors is Jim Fowler, who's made some great contributions for us, and who we've leaned on also for legal advice. So we are surrounded by officials at Football Canada, and that's good because they keep me on my toes. Because after my college broadcasting career, where I called out officials on a number of occasions, now you're surrounding me so you can call me out.
If I may say a couple of things. First of all, Jim, thanks for being here today among officials. I think under Jim's leadership, I think the relationship, the partnership has progressed quite a bit. I know Jim mentioning about establishing the associate membership. It's sort of been talks for a couple of years. It was actually something that for us, we sort of mentioned it to Shannon, talk about, hey, is there a better way for us to be part of the bigger picture? That conversation actually took place when we had our conference in Niagara Falls. I think that was about 4 or 5 years ago. And the fact that the new hire by Football Canada, now his title actually has officials development, that's progress. As we continue to work together and officials having a voice in the game that we all love, I think that's important. Having a seat at the table, serving on the contact committee, rules committee, of course, and safety committee, of course, with Jim as well on the Football Canada's board of directors. I think that's, as we go forward, there's a lot more that we can contribute. Even putting something together like the return to play manual for the officials. So for our membership, your continued input is important so we can reflect that and represent you properly in the sort of bigger scope of what the football environment, what you guys want to see. And yeah, so I think it's just very, very positive as we sort of go forward in this process.
Thanks, Henry. I really appreciate that input. And there's a lot to be encouraged with at a challenging time, because there is that dialogue. I know when I reached out to you for the discussion around some of the CFL stuff, the response from you was revealing for me, because it's like, wow, you guys are actually making sure that we're in the loop on this, and there's communication and there's dialogue going here. And there is, it takes work, it takes time, it takes maintenance, but it's all worth it to make sure that there's an ongoing national conversation. I think one of the and I think everyone here that's been around for more than 5 minutes knows that this sport is very siloed. This sport is in various boxes all over this country. I think one of the biggest challenges for Football Canada, our board, and myself is to make sure that we break down those walls. And two critical areas for us are officiating and coaching, because of the numbers, because of that we need to attract new blood to both those areas. For instance, it is on the flag side, but over in Nova Scotia, we had worried about registration numbers coming into spring. We thought that there was going to be a big drop off, whether it was flag or contact. Flag registration was through the roof. There's a waiting list of 200 kids in Nova Scotia. Why is there a waiting list of 200 kids? Well, facility access is one thing, but the lack of parents who are in a position to coach or officiate also holds back that development and that participation. So this is why it's so important to have the officials with a voice at the table, so there is that dialogue, so that when we hit on ideas, we can expand on them together.
Hi, Jim. It's Jim Crowley from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. I
Hey.
just wanted to make 3 statements or questions that maybe you can answer. Is one, thank you for doing mental health as a person who suffers from mental health issues, and I serve on a number of boards in Northern Ontario for mental health and addictions. I really am that's outstanding. Do you have committees that people can join? Like my experience and thing, do you have a mental health committee with Football Canada?
Right now, that's something that goes through the safety committee. And
Okay.
I think if we want to branch out into a subcommittee, that's a different discussion, but I do
Okay.
think that we need to do more. That being said, I was made aware on Tuesday that in the finance packet from Sport Canada, that that there would be some additional access to mental health funding programming
Great.
coming down. So to have that focus on mental health, I think is fairly key for us. Especially if there's finance attached to it that we can activate into an actual program.
So my second question and statement, and I'll be really quick, is as a parent of a former youth sport player, one of the biggest challenges, and I've talked to a lot of his teammates, when they finish youth sports, they're lost. You know, they've been the big athlete or the big thing and going to school they're lost. They don't know what to do. Like my son was pretty well lost for a year. I'm wondering if it's this Football Canada, or Henry can answer this, CFOA. Do we have a recruiting process going into the youth sports for a heavier recruiting process to getting some of these athletes that maybe the youth sports officials identify as potential, promoting officiating or promoting coaching? And my third statement, and I'll be done after this, is I have connections in China, and I'm telling you right now, I know 3 players that play with my son at a University of Waterloo that are in China. Football is huge over there. I will send you their email. It is big. Anyways, that's it.
So in terms of promoting officiating at the youth sports, and I'd say at the CJFL level as well, one of the things that we talked about in the 5-phase football summit was exactly that. Was how do we work together to go through these youth sports programs to, on an annual basis, starting, first of all, we were talking about freshman players, but freshman players have too much on their plate. Starting with second-year players on an annual basis, saying, here is a path to officiating for you. Here is a path to coaching for you. To remind them that path is there, that they can be more than an X and an O. They can be an official, or they can be a coach. That is something that we need to continue to develop, but it has been identified. I think the other opportunity that exists for officiating is, and this is especially the case in Ontario, is that if you're dealing with a university aged male athlete, they don't want to necessarily start out officiating 10-year-old, 12-year-old kids, but at the conclusion of their football season, when the Ontario Women's Intercollegiate Football League starts, which is that hybrid game that they do, that's a good first step in the January, February, March to get your first initial introduction into officiating. And I've talked to Olivia over at the Ontario Women's group about that. And there are a few players that do engage in that, but I think that's a fantastic opportunity because it's socially driven and it's peer group driven. And when you approach it on those terms, it's a fantastic gateway for those individuals as they transition out of playing the game to then doing something else within the game. So I think we have some points to build on, but we need to put more work into it. In terms of connections in China, The issue with China at the international level for international competition is, I think we know that there's a lot of state-run things in China. One of them is not their football NSO. They're a private corporation, and they are they're on the international scene. They're highly inconsistent in their delivery. So they are essentially a hard group to reach. So if you've got any connections that you can pass along to me there, that would be most welcome.
Just want to briefly touch base on that question I asked a little bit earlier there, Jim. With me being a fresh official, I just started last year. Last year was a very hard year to start reffing for new officials. I got maybe half a dozen or so games in. I'm reffing here with EFOA in Alberta. I learned by hands-on experience. So it's been really difficult for me to kind of start in these COVID times, but I'm looking to see kind of where officiating is going, because as I've stated, I learned by experience, and I'm just not getting on the field nearly as much as I'd like to. So I kind of just want to hear kind of where things are progressing as of for 2021 with my association here in Edmonton.
Okay, well, I can't respond directly about your association in Edmonton, but I do recognize what you're talking about, because I was an official for 3 years in my early 20s, and I felt that I wasn't getting enough opportunity, so I moved on to coaching. So there was a point of frustration for me as a young official about getting enough opportunities and literally getting enough reps. So there is that. I think the one thing that we can do, working with the CFOA at the national level, I talked about those international events on an annual basis. We need to, and it's just the same issue that we have at Flag. We need to for those individuals who are starting out, you need to know what your outcome is down the road. You need to have an aspirational outcome. And for many it would be the CFL, but for some others it would be officiating in international events. So if we can work with the CFOA moving forward in the future to create that focus, I think it would be a positive thing for younger officials.
As a thing to pass on, Jim and Sue again, to I forget who was talking. We live in Northern Ontario. We don't get as much access to Southern Ontario, like to get those opportunities, but we get a lot of games. But one thing that we're really good with the OFOA is we have opportunities. You just have to reach out. You have to be consistent. Ask, and they will give you the opportunities. Like we do OFSA games, and we have senior games, and we have OFC or OBFL games. So passing on to him is, don't be afraid to ask to do the games. The senior guys will help you out everything you can. Just be persistent. And if that doesn't work, get online and learn and get on the clinics as much as you can. That's a big advantage we have here.
It's amazing what happens when you ask. Yes. I mean, all I can say is no, right?
If I can jump in here quick, because we're running short on time. If in 2 minutes, if you can give me a COVID update from a national perspective.
Yeah, like I mentioned about our regional games, we're in a bit of a jam right now in terms of trying to stage something for July between the provinces. We do look forward to reactivation of football by the fall. My understanding with U Sport right now is that they will be starting 3 weeks later. At least that's the plan, and concluding with the Vanier Cup on December the 4th. And so they're buying some time in terms of not starting training camps in August, but starting them in and around the Labor Day weekend. I anticipate that in most provinces we should have some form of football in each of them in the fall. Now, what sort of compromises will we have to make? I don't want to guess at this point, but we are structuring things for a fall restart. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up with this group right now. And if you have any ideas in and around this or any great stories around this, I'd like to hear it from this group, which is on October 15th, 16th, and 17th. We are in the planning stages of launching football weekend in Canada. So if there's a great story about an official out there that this group wants to get out during that time, please let me know. Please advise me of it, because I really do anticipate we're going to have football in the middle of October this year. If not, I don't want to think about the alternative.
Thanks, Sir Jim. We're running short on time now, but I really appreciate this, brother.
Yeah.
This has been good, hearing different perspective from somebody outside, our football referee world. But some good stuff, especially the stuff at the end there about the COVID, the mental health stuff you're talking about. A lot of good stuff happening at Football Canada. So again, thank you very much, and we'll see you along the way. And I know we'll be getting. Actually, there's somebody's asking about your email. We'll maybe get that posted as soon as you're gone here. We'll get Barry to kind of send it out to the guys that participated today in case they want to get something to you or have further questions for you maybe.
Sure. I'll be happy to answer all of them. And once again, thanks to you, Nigel. And thanks to Henry for providing some great leadership and being a great partner in football on this.
Hey, Jim, Sandy Baines here. Bone looks good on you, buddy.
Oh, thanks very much, Sandy. Appreciate it. Sandy is my favorite heckler. Like out of all the officials I know, he's the guy that heckles back.
Why you heckled on? You picked on me.
All right, back to you there, Barry.
Okay, thanks. I'm just throwing Jim's email here in the chat. Jim@northern8.com. Correct, Jim? Jim at in regards to next week's, again, you should be getting something via email no later than Wednesday. If you don't, please reach out to me. There was a comment about participation in the CFOA. How do I get involved? Send us your email. We'll be in touch, plain and simple. You can send it to me. Anyone that you have a contact, send it to your provincial rep, and who can then forward it off to the CFOA, and we will see what we can do about getting you involved there. There should be Jim's email in the chat. I'm going to just throw it over to Henry Chu for any final comments here before we go. Thanks for joining us this week, guys. See you next week.
Hang on a second, Nigel here again. I'll just real quick for next week as a reminder, we got Daryl Barron, who's doing the 6 and 7 person mechanics, and Kelsey Johnson doing the rule changes review of 2020 and 2021 for us. That's next week.
Couple of quick comments. Thanks. Want to acknowledge again co-chairs Barry DeBay and Nigel Bush for organizing this. It's not easy, especially for somebody who's not technically literate.
What?
What?
I wonder who he's talking about there.
Not Barry, but couple of quick things though. Number one, on your behalf, we've been actually speaking with different sports officiating organizations, soccer, basketball in particular, and rugby as well. So trying to get some information, get some of their insights in terms of recruitment and retention, and actually some of the costing as well. Actually, I was surprised. Some of the initial finding is that the cost to start officiating in football is actually not higher than any other sport. I was surprised to find that. But once we have more information, I'll share it with everybody. At the same time, We're working with CFL as well as Football Canada on diversity and inclusion, some initiatives there. So that's we're working on that. And questions about how do you get involved? I put out our general email, cfoaref@gmail.com. If you're interested, please let us know, you're interested in what areas you want to get involved in. Certainly, I know Kyle, who is in charge of our communications and marketing side, he can use some help. And of course, in terms of if you have experience in working in associations or in HR, we need that kind of expertise as we go forward working with Football Canada, and as we look forward to better building that better synergy among all the provinces, all the PSOs. And on your behalf as well, the executive is also working on the insurance issue based on Adam Hink's presentation a couple of weeks ago. So those are a lot of things that we're working towards. We can certainly use a lot more help. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, just reach out to one of the executives or just send it to the general email, and we'll try to answer as best as we can. We have a lot of materials on our website, CFOA that you're more than welcome to use for your local training. The level 1 clinic, we're piloting that online, as you heard from Carey. Once we've completed the entire series next week, we'll put it online as well as a summary in terms of some of the learnings in terms of delivering education material online. So we'll share that as well. So everything is to be shared, to be used in your local area. So yeah, we're open, and we're here to support each other. And hopefully, like Jim said, when we get football back on the field in the fall, we're ready to go. Any other questions that we can answer at this point? Going once, going twice. All right. Thanks again for being here. We'll look forward to seeing most of you, or if not all of you, next week. Thanks, guys, from all across the country.